Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I'm live. It's such like a very strange setting to be in. It's like you can't see people, you're expecting to see people. But anyway, good morning, everybody else. Everybody else is joining us from all parts of the world. My name is Jessica Ramashaba. Welcome to the Future of Fashion. Welcome to the Future of welcome to. I can't hear anything. Okay, sorry, I'm concentrating on too many things. Let me focus. So, good morning. Last take. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Future of Fashion. I think this is like the final session. It's been very exciting with all the master classes that they've been having, and even yesterday's session with the Twig Awards. It's just been so exciting just to see everything else coming together and all the information that came out of it. It's just been so empowering. It's been so just very informative, and I think a great reminder of where we are and helping us, sit strong in our strength in terms of as Africans where we are and the things that we've been doing. So my name is Jessica Ramashaba. I am a former fashion editor. I'm also a style consultant, and I run a styling agency called Faura. We've basically come up with unique solutions for women for their wardrobes and for their style, particularly around the sustainable fashion topic. We have quite a lot of conversations around fashion consumption and fashion disposal. So that's essentially what I try and educate my clients about. So just before we start, how it's going to work is that we have a beautiful program set out today for us. We are going to have two keynote speakers, a founder of Lagos Fashion Week, Omoyemi Akerele, and we're also going to have Christine Dolver-Thornberg from she's a sustainability manager at Fjallraven, and then after that, we'll go into a design exhibition. And then we'll have the final remarks from Roven and the Swedish Institute. So I just want to acknowledge all our partners in collaboration with the Swedish Embassy, the Swedish Institute at Twig, and the African Fashion Institute. And I think with that, we'll probably just slowly start moving towards the millennium. I'm just seeing that there's still okay. So she can hear me. They were just still trying to sort it out. But just before we start, I just wanted just to tell you just a short story that's something that, was like an aha moment for me this morning. I went for a jog this morning just before the session, and one of our neighbors, they have lost their son, and their son was 21 years old. He died of brain cancer. And so I was walking, I was jogging, and I was passing through their house, and it just felt like this dark cloud. It's like early in the morning, and you're just feeling this dark cloud around their home. And I just thought, geez, we haven't even sent them flowers, because obviously it's COVID. Naturally, if it was not COVID, we would obviously just go in and just send our condolences. But because we live in the suburbs, you can't even just walk into people's homes and just send your condolences, And I thought, this is exactly what we're speaking about today. This idea of us as Africans, how we've always had our way of being, our way of how we do things, and for some reason, just because of the modern world or the Western world, we start feeling anxious around the things that we know, the things that we know how to best excel at, because even during tragedy, we come together and we rally around each other and we support each other and we send food and we do all these things. So I felt very awkward about it. I don't particularly know my neighbors because, of course, the whole idea of this whole startup life that has just been we've just been basically been pushed on. And I thought, I should be sending flowers. But anyway, I just thought it was just like such a nice reminder of exactly the topic of today, our way of being as Africans, that we should rise up and we should continue those things that we are doing for ourselves and the things that we know they're always working for us, the things that how we were raised and how our values, in terms of where they are cemented, So I loved the whole concept of interconnectedness that Isetu was talking about last night when she closed her closing remarks for the day one event. And also Gogo Dineo, it just reminded of all those conversations that was happening last night, and the short film that we watched last night, that it really is about that. It really is about just, there's death. One of your neighbors is experiencing difficulty, and it's about sending some food. It's about sending some flowers. It's about, you don't even need to know them. That's just how we are as Africans. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Omoyemi Akerele to come through. I'm hoping she's ready. And she'll be talking to us. She'll be giving a keynote speaking on, she'll be talking on what does the future of African fashion look like, and the challenges. She'll be tackling that topic for us. Omoyemi, you can come through. Hi, Omoyemi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for the invitation to everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, yes.
Okay. And thank you so much for inviting me to speak at a Future of Fashion. When Esefu got in touch with me, I guess about a month and a half ago, I felt so inspired to do this purely because of the name of the event, the Future of Fashion. And that's primarily because, for the last 3 or 4 years, we've focused at Style House Files Lagos Fashion Week. We've sort of concentrated the bulk of our work around initiatives that we believe are beginning to shape the future, or we're hopeful will shape the future of fashion on the continent today. So I want to say thank you so much for the invitation, and I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to share my thoughts with you, and hopefully one of these days when we're all back in physical spaces, it'd be great to meet, to see the work that Rewoven is doing, and just just to connect. So today my talk is going to be on. I'm just waiting for the slides to come up so that I can start.
All right, that's fine. Take your time.
Thank you, Shepo. So today, thank you so much, Shepo. Today, what I want to talk about is in sort of like in tune or inspired by the theme of the platform, and what you're doing is reshaping fashion's future. I mean, for me, Shepherd, please can we go to, so the title of my presentation is Reshaping Fashion's Future. For the last 3 or 4 years, we've made it very important to us at Style House Files Lagos Fashion Week to answer the question, what does it mean to shape fashion's future? What does the future hold? And where are we as stakeholders in this, and how are we going to contribute to this? We believe that craftsmanship is the beating heart of African fashion. For the last 10 years, Lagos Fashion Week has celebrated our craftsmanship. We've celebrated our heritage of craftsmanship, which has been often creatively expressed by the diversity of designers that we show and present annually at Lagos Fashion Week, which we believe is in Lagos, one of Africa's biggest cities. We believe the platform has cemented its place as an important one for being able to connect to a global audience. But beyond that, it's been about community building. It's been about, coming together. It's been about, trying to ensure that in this ecosystem, we all find a way to sort of get our voices heard. Thanks, Shafo. Can we please go to the next slide? So oh, I believe that in Africa, the art of creation has always been a community art, and that's what makes us really stand out. That's what makes our work truly special. The continent is vast and rich with an abundance of natural resources. Our culture is vibrant. We have inherent values that, coupled with skills that have been passed down from generation to generation in communities dotted around the African fashion landscape. What's truly unique, and I think what we've often celebrated is that realization that we cannot do everything on our own. We're sort of all interconnected and interwoven, and that makes the art of creation itself truly special in Africa. It's a community art. Next slide, please. So from designers like Emeka Bates, who sources his fabrics from Akwete in southeastern part of Nigeria, and currently sells in different parts of the world, to designers like next slide, please. Like Diola Sego, who as well, for decades, she's made it sort of like her task to reinvent the fabric we call in Nigeria ashoke, to look for ways to innovate and make the fabric not only relevant, but, to become something that's truly special that she works with her artisans behind the scenes. So designers like, next slide please, so designers like Lisa Falawiyo, who reinvented the art of using Ankara, which we all know might not be African, but has found a way to sort of make it her own over the years and, sort of in a way that she owns it. Beyond creativity, however, can you please change next slide, please? Beyond creativity, though, I believe fashion has the potential to drive change in the African fashion industry. Yes, we do know that because we rely to a large extent on our human skills, human resources, natural resources. It's very important that we begin to explore how we can create that careful and constant balance that we need between the people, the processes and resources that contribute to all these collections that we see season after season that light up our runways, right from Lagos to Cape Town, where you all are. Next slide, please. At Star House Vegas Fashion Week, we believe stakeholders must come together. The time has come for us to come together. We have to work towards trying to figure out how to strengthen this ecosystem. How do we preserve its fragility? How do we build communities, make them stronger? How do we foster collaboration that can gradually begin to define a more sustainable future? The kind of innovation that we need from now has to be homegrown. It has to be between us. And it has to focus, on collaborative efforts that's targeted at finding the middle ground between what I believe should be our most important conversation drivers today. What are the things we need to be talking about for us to be able to see the future that we're hoping for? So our current focus is around sustainability, technology, industrialization, sourcing, distribution, funding, and creative exchange. Next slide, please. So the future of the African, something that stuck with me is a quote that I put there. Anything we cannot do forever is not sustainable. And it's a phrase by Sir David Attenborough. And what really struck me or what's really important is that it is true, even though we live in, we're from a continent that's vast in terms of, the natural resources that we have and the human resources, our people. We cannot keep taking from our community or keep taking from our environment and expect the resources not to dwindle or it not to affect communities or affect, environments that we've been sourcing from. So I think the future of the African textile and fashion industry needs us to start to incorporate a bit more sustainable practices and to ensure that they're locally embedded in addition to secular business models to enable us to be more competitive. Someone might tell me that, oh, we've always been sustainable. Yes, we have been. Yes, we've been community minded. Yes, we have been, working with our hands. Yes, we've been, the socioeconomic sustainability, wherein, we ensure that we give back to communities we source from. Yes, you are right in the sense that, we celebrate our craftsmen, our craftsmen, and our artisans at the forefront. But beyond that, there's got to be a bit more mindfulness within the process to ask ourselves the questions, our people, are we really thinking of the people as humans first before we think of them as creators? Those are, that's one of the things that we need to start thinking about when we look at the process as well of creation. One of a very good friend of mine, Vandana Tawari, and who we invited her to give a talk at Lagos Fashion Week. And Vandana said something that's also stayed with me for a while, which is a product has no value if the process is not respected. A process has no value if there's no purpose to it. We have to be more mindful. Mindfulness, I think, is a word that I've come to use so often in the last like 1 year, and this year, has even this year has taught us that we don't even have a choice but to be more mindful. So we have to be even more mindful that every product that we create has value, and that the process to that product, must be meaningful. There must be a purpose to it, and the product as well must generate value. And generating value today means that we have to create in a way that takes a different meaning. It must be made to last, and made to last for a very long time. So yes, maybe looking at the slide in front of me, the linear economy has always been, make, use, and dispose. Let's just get rid of it. The recycling economy, which is a part of who we are, we've always either, I mean, in my family, we've always, my sisters, I wore my sister's clothes, my siblings wore my clothes, my daughters, my younger daughter loves wearing her sister's clothes, and so there's recycling already embedded in who we are as Africans. It's natural, but and there are also other elements that make us make that create or makes room for us to be natural recyclers. However, we also have to ensure that most of the time that also eventually ends up in the bin or in landfill somewhere. So the conversation has to move even beyond recycling to how can we create a circular economy? How can we ensure that we close the loop? How can we elevate and support concepts that champion how to close the loop across our value system? So if we think of it in that way, as simplistic as it is, it's nothing too fancy or too strange. How do we rethink and redesign every part of a garment's life to increase its use? That should be the purpose. It requires us to rethink and redesign every part of what we create, every part of what's in the creative process. And, it goes back to how safe are the materials? Is it renewable? Is it reusable? Is it something that, this is so that at the end of the day, it's not always about, out with the old and in with the new. How do we ensure that old clothes can be made new? I know that it's a process, we have to think about it, a gradual shift in thinking beyond value chains to maybe creating value cycles, where we think about the whole process from raw materials to our processing to, even dyeing and finishing, our crop make and trim system, retail, end of use. How do we ensure that within all of that process, the work that we do, the work that we create, the people that we work with, and the process, is championing that very thinking to ensure that everything that we, that we're designing is designed for reuse, is designed for repurposing, is designed for recycling. So let's think about the whole production value as cycles that's interconnected to extend their purpose. Next slide, please. Innovation is key to the future. Technology is quite interesting when you talk about technology and African fashion. It can be a bit of a, as much as you need it, sometimes you also fear it a little bit, like, what are we going to do? But we need technology. We need to innovate. Innovation is key to the future. Adopting innovative technology from things like zero waste manufacturing, additive manufacturing, to 3D design. This what 2020 has taught us is that we really do need technology. AI trend forecasting, digital showrooms, and here today because of technology. even though I'm not even in Lagos as we speak, but I'm glad that because of technology, I'm able to be a part of this amazing platform and amazing project that you're working on today. So from 3D design to on-demand manufacturing, digital solutions as well can contribute significantly to streamlining the production process. It can help us create efficiencies in design, anything, in pretty much any area, from merchandising to planning, even to waste management within the factory, to ensure that, we every aspect of the work that we do, we focus on how to reduce waste, how to present better, and how to be more effective. The question, though, that we need to ask ourselves is, how can we use technology to support processes without dehumanization, bearing in mind, the peculiarities of African fashion, like what makes African fashion. If we take automation, for example, is this a threat? And then we start to ask ourselves, if we're thinking, having automated processes as the technology that we're importing into our cut, make, and training facilities, right? What's going to happen to the workers in the factories? I mean, we're still living in Africa at the end of the day, where we're trying to create jobs for people. So that brings us to conversations around, okay, maybe what we need to do is to be upskilling people and make sure they have the technology skills that's required to work with technology processes that we have to put in place to create better efficiencies. So when we look at things like AI, AR, VR, fit solutions, it doesn't seem as daunting as it is, and we can still ensure that, we're carrying everyone along. So in asking those questions, how do we create less waste? How do we eliminate unnecessary trouble? How do we, I mean, a certain might have had to, before now, Rewoven team might have had to fly me to South Africa for this, or you would have probably worked with someone who's based locally. So technology helps us in a way to deal with to deal and to trim the fat and reduce waste. So I mean, this image is something I really like because it says a lot. I got it from Salina Wamuchi, and they're based in Kenya. And pretty much what they try to do is use technology to connect cotton farmers, to market, to be able to bring them to market. So, and when we're talking about cotton farmers, we're talking about probably in like rural communities and all of that, like organic cotton farming. And that shows that, that says a lot that, people, farmers who are a very valuable part of the value chain can gain opportunities for access to market because a group of people have created an app to help them, sell their cotton at a competitive price so that they don't lose too much through the process. Next slide, please. Industrialization. So hot, I debated whether to put them together, but I think it's important to also separate them a little bit, or separate industrialization from technology, even though they're interwoven. They say productivity gains comes through a combination of specialization and mechanization. But we all know that fashion in Africa is distinct for its craftsmanship and dependence on valuable resources and skills like embellishment, embroidery, weaving, spinning, and customization. Techniques that make them really special because they've been touched by hand. So what do? We constantly ask ourselves, we look around us, the whole aim is, yes, we do what the word of 2020, pivot. We want our African brands to pivot. We want them to scale up. But how do they scale up? How do we create that balance? How can African fashion preserve its essence in a world, where, like I've said before, where automation is replacing such traditional skills and techniques? How can we balance, the designer's need for scalability without upsetting the fragile ecosystem that's people dependent on its uniqueness? What makes it unique really is the fact that that, take Emik Hasbit, for example, that even though he might be a designer based in Lagos, the people who weave his fabrics are based in Akwete, which is, several hours away from Lagos. But imagine if all of that process is replaced by some industrialized weaving machine, what's going to happen to those people? So those are the questions that we need to constantly ask ourselves as we have this conversation. Can we balance the craft and knowledge of, and in the industrialization? Do we, what's the solution? So the key word here is preservation, balance, and protect. Next slide, please. So it begs what we're thinking, or what a few people have done. Like I said, Dion, who's based in, I think, Senegal. Yes, I think she's based in Dakar. That's where I met her. And she has a craft village, and essentially, so that's this is not. So I'll talk about two examples. With craft villages, you still have everyone working together. The artisans and craftsmen are in the same place, but what's happening is because there's division of labor, and there are more workers, so it's easy to sort of break down the process and scale up efficiencies, so which might help. Secondly, there's something called mass customization that we might have to start exploring, and that's because predominantly a lot of people still want that. Oh, it's African fashion, and then it's still special to me. It still has a made to measure appeal. So how do we sort of hold on to that, to the specialization and customization element of African fashion, but still able to increase efficiencies in terms of production? And option three is maybe African fashion shouldn't be mass produced. So those are the things that we all need to come to the table as stakeholders to ask ourselves, to discuss, and to fashion the way out. Next slide, please. Sourcing. Sourcing is also very important, and 2020 has also showed us that sourcing is a huge part of the creative process. Creative people should be encouraged to source across Africa. In 2020, we noticed that businesses have been able to keep their heads above water, at least in Nigeria. Are businesses, who've been able to incorporate vertical integration into their production process. So if you're not sourcing locally, how are you able to, compete? Considering, in my country, Nigeria, there's been the foreign exchange, the fluctuations in foreign exchange this year has been really bad, obviously, because we've been trying to survive the pandemic and, of course, recession in the economy. So creative people should be encouraged more than before to source across Africa. By doing this, we're investing in communities, we're supporting livelihoods, we're creating value from source to product in a way that we can trace. There's traceability. There's a direct link between who's produced the fabric, who's embroidered it, who's embellished it, right down to who's manufacturing it, right down to consumers. It would be great, to explore more opportunities for making this happen. Next slide, please. So with us, one area that we're super, what's the word, that we like to support and create value is within our apparel manufacturing skills for employability initiative called SHF Trains, which is in partnership with Nigeria Export Promotion Council, where we train people, and we're still training them manually. It's not automated. We don't have automation yet, but the whole idea is to encourage people to even manufacture locally. So you don't have to produce your collections outside Nigeria. It's still work in process, because of specialization that's required, or skills that even sewing machine operators and pattern makers need to have. But that's the future of, trying to encourage vertically integrated fashion businesses on the road to being more sustainable. Thank you. Next slide, please. Distribution. Wow, distribution is complex. It is complex. It's in the absence of continent-wide I guess, luxury departmental stores that's in almost every African country. We need to sort of ensure that, we explore how the brands gain opportunities for access to markets. How are they able to access, especially within Africa, if we think about the population of Africa and how untapped that market is for all of us, not just selling within South Africa, but to be able to crisscross between countries. But how do we do that? Bearing in mind that infrastructure isn't readily available across the continent like that. We know that it's the movement of people and goods. The movement of people alone across Africa is a complex route of visas, flights. I mean, sometimes you probably have to take 2, 3 flights before you get to certain parts of Africa. So imagine distribution, logistics, what a logistics nightmare it might be to get to other parts of Africa. So, I believe that African brands today must try to speak what the retail language, must try to speak the retail language of today, which is omni-channel. How do we, how do we create bricks and mortar stores, but also create the same experience online? 2020 has also taught us that if you don't have digital footprint for your business, it's been a year of quite a lot of realization. So we need to ensure that happens, and we need to reduce our reliance on bricks and mortar to sort of elevating that conversation online. But the other things that, the other language or the other that I believe it's important for us to start, trying to learn how to fine-tune will be resale, rework, rental as part of secular business models that we should then incorporate into our distribution channel as well. So yes, it's important I do know that it's important to encourage buying new things, but at the same time, there are also other means of creating opportunities for trade that don't always involve making new things, and that's what we also might have to consider when we're thinking about reducing or trying to preserve our natural resources and our human resources, like I said at the beginning. So resell, we need more resell platforms, right? We need more opportunities for rework. So yes, quite a few designers this year decided to go back into their ateliers and to rework like old collections to make it new and to create, and they sold it on their e-commerce site. So those are concepts that we also need to be more open to. And of course, the concept of rental. People should be able to rent. It is fashion. It's still, and there's different models like that exist across the world, from Rent the Runway, and there's several others. So distribution no longer has to be what we think it should be, in terms of getting our excuse me, in terms of getting our product to market. Next slide, please. But I do know that, one challenge that we have is with logistics. Logistics and payments, how can you sell? I was on a panel yesterday, and we're trying to, of course, talking about the challenges, which is being able to pay in the local currency where you're shopping from. It's a problem across Africa. But I think one of the partners of yesterday's conversation, they're working on making that possible. Those are solutions that we need to look for, because it's odd to peg our prices to dollars and we're in Africa, so we should be able to shop in our local currency when we're shopping online as well. So, and then logistics is also like an ongoing nightmare. I'm not quite sure, so I guess we just have to keep sort of negotiating with the DHLs and the UPS and of course the local suppliers like that. Like, we have we have different ones in Nigeria as well that designers and creative people patronize to help move their goods and to get it to the right customer. Funding. Funding, fashion requires long-term investment for sustainable growth, especially when especially when we're talking about research and development for projects, for sustainability projects or secular fashion projects or secular business model projects. A lot of investment is required. But traditional lending still requires a deeper understanding of the nuances of the business between lender and borrower. Yes, it's possible to approach banks to get loans, or if you're opting for the traditional approach. And yes, there might be some opportunities where it's a single digit interest rate, but sometimes you can't even afford that. So how do we have conversations around funding and put in place proper structures to make funding readily available to support businesses, either from inception or when you're trying to scale up. It's an ongoing problem. May I have the next slide, please? So we're trying to grow a fund. It's been frustrating. It's still very little, but I do believe that when brands are starting out, it's imperative to try and explore how to find grants to help take them from that level to the next one. We're still trying to grow this and looking for more partners to make this happen. Next slide, please. And there are different, there's a HIVA fund as well, I think, in East Africa. In South Africa, I know you have lots of options, when it comes to funding. But I guess you cannot avoid that question. At the end of the day, you will get to a place where you need to scale up, and you might have to opt for debt instead of or equity. And the whole idea is to ensure that you build your and grow your business in a way you keep good books, have good accounting practice, so that when the time comes for you to take your business to the next level, and you need, depending on what you opt for, debt or equity, you do have, you have the right foundation to be able to help you gain access to that. Creative exchange or knowledge exchange. I think this is something we really must do a lot more of, like collaborations. We need to collaborate more between countries, not just between maybe a Nigerian designer and a European designer or a South African designer. We need to do a bit more within ourselves. I read about this project that happened between the College of Fashion in London in collaboration with Lysop in South Africa. But this was like a few years ago, maybe in 2007. And it just seemed like a really interesting project. I think it can be a key way to preserve skills. I believe it can also be a way of, what's the word, introducing the work that we do to a completely different audience. It would be great to see more opportunities for that, more opportunities for collaboration and partnership. In a way that we are getting a bit more understanding their craftsmanship, and we're also sharing a bit of ours with them. Commonwealth Fashion Exchange as well had an event a few years ago where designers from across the Commonwealth were paired with each other. And I think this outfit was from Unko, and she was paired with a Kenyan designer. So it would be great to see more opportunities for that. And last year we worked on a project called Between Us Africa, and designers were, and there were collections in the store. I think Tammy, who's actually I think based in South Africa as well, who it was important for her to bring designers together to work on different, to sort of source fabrics from different parts of Africa to create a collection, which were sold as one-off items. And it's things like that that's really, truly special. It stands out, it tells a story, it encourages conversation. And beyond that, it builds a bit more community interaction between the collaborators. Next slide, please. So I think in resetting the dial, in thinking about what's next and where do we go from here, I really believe in this proverb that it takes a village to raise a child. Closing the loop across our various fashion, our existing value cycles will definitely help us drive efficiencies and enable the industry transition properly from a linear economy to a circular one. But there must be a significant increase in making sure we look for opportunities to gain access to technical expertise because there's a lot of technology involved, even as simplified as it might seem for like concepts like recycling. So yes, it's easy to recycle, but when you're trying to what's the word, like upcycle the fabrics and send to put it back into the loop, then you realize that you need technology. If you have mixed fabric like polyester and cotton, that's when you realize that it's something that's really skilled. So technical expertise is required, funding is required, education across our existing systems to create the change that we hope to see. This is possible, but we cannot do it without that collective mindfulness, like the coming together with projects like Future of Fashion to co-create solutions that will work for us. In crafting these solutions, we can then come up with like the required tools for our textile and apparel brands to take back with them. And these are the tools I think that would help them survive in today's world. They need a lot of agility will be needed. We have to make it has to be it has to we have to come up with different ways of operating in the world that we see in today because things are really changing fast. We're going to need legislation, infrastructure, and more to create this perfect environment. The one thing we have though is that African countries, we have this rich natural ecosystem that we think is just going to keep giving, but we also have to understand that in this shared ecosystem, everybody matters. The environment also matters. We all have a role to play in contributing to the beautiful legacy of craft that's been passed down from generation to generation. We have obligations to ensure that we do not strip our environment of resources. We have to leave it in a better place for our unborn generation and the people coming after us. And this is something we have to work on together. We have our differences, but the future is not about erasing those differences. The future is about acknowledging them, celebrating them, understanding our uniqueness, value them as we journey together to build lasting structure and strengthen an ecosystem where everybody matters. Yes, everyone matters. Every voice counts, and every hand should benefit. So, in resetting the dial, we have to keep our minds on driving productivity and innovation and passion. We have to create all these platforms, like more platforms like, the future of fashion for knowledge acquisition, skills development, job creation. We're hoping that all of this will help us create an ecosystem of thriving fashion businesses that can positively impact the African economy. And beyond that, to develop access to, tap into into intra-African trade to be able to access local and regional markets. I want to leave you with this video from This Is Us Africa. This is us. This is us Nigeria. This is us Nigeria is how am I going to describe them? I just really love their work, because there's so much consideration and thoughtfulness that's gone into the process of making, into the process of creating. And this video just tells us, what it is to design like an African. So please watch. Is it playing? Is the volume? So thank you so much. For some reason, the audio didn't come on for that video to sort of give you the full experience, and I don't know why, but basically the summary is to design like an African is to design for a very long time, and it basically talks about ensuring that you design with value, that you design with care, you design with thoughtfulness for the environment, and ensure that no matter what you do, it is made to last and is made to last, made with beauty, made with thoughtfulness, and I think it's sort of a charge or a call out to all of us to do better, to be better, because that's who we are. It's a part of what we've always done. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Omoyemi. That was very insightful. Very, very interesting. I just want to touch on some of the themes that came up on the presentation. I love the idea of that the product has no value if the process is not respected. So I really think that it's so true, and that's just in terms of design, all the fashion designers, that's like the way to go and the approach in terms of what how they can tackle the fabric. It must be made to last. Innovation has also helped us connect during COVID, so I love that. And maybe African fashion shouldn't be a mass production. So I really, really love that.
Don't quote me because people are going to bash me. Really? So are we doing this for fun? Like, okay, don't quote me.
When you said that, I was just like, oh, like yeah. So yeah, that was very, very powerful. And you also touched on local sourcing. So I just want us just to have a chat about particularly now with COVID. I think COVID has shown us the whole idea of how we can be interconnected. I'm wondering if do you think it's a phase, or do you think this is how the fashion industry will rally going forward?
I'm hoping it's here to stay, because it's very, very, very important that I mean, the three things I've said this all year, it's taught us that, the importance of co-creation, collaboration, and community, I mean, we've never been more mindful about each other than we have this year. And that's what, the pandemic has taught us. When you realize that I'm not in being responsible for myself, I'm being responsible for you, it's made us more human. And I'm hoping that this is something we all take away with us. I'm hoping that I can't even imagine it not continuing. So I want to believe that we're going to continue this way. We just have to.
Yeah. And also, going back to your presentation, so taking into account the importance of cultural ownership, authenticity, and owning our narrative as Africans. What does the future of African fashion look like, given that we are a global economy in the system that is often against us?
So I think for me, it's important to own your story. But to even own your story, you need to know your story. I think we're guilty because we live our story. We live this, we're in it. We forget to tell the story. We forget that, this story is a part of who we are. And unfortunately, whether or not we like it as Africans or African creatives, other people are telling our story, and they're running with it. Not only are they running with it, they're running with it globally in a way that begs the question that people often forget that they're not even African to begin with. So then what choice? I mean, if we who live it, who breathe it, who, it's a very part of who we are, if we don't celebrate it, if we don't own it, then what's the point? That's the most, I think that's knowing who we are, knowing our identity, and, celebrating that, I think, is one of the most powerful tools that any human can have, to be able to know that, listen, this is my story. I am proud of it, and that's the way that you're going to be able to fashion the future, especially in a world where globalization has just, I mean, everything's just, I don't want to use the word erode, but globalization has sort of eroded everything. Nanoseconds, everything is around the world. Things are not that special anymore. So I think in that case, it's even more important to reinforce the idea of telling our story from that cultural angle, because our culture, our culture culture is a currency. Culture is a power. So we have to hold on to it, in celebrating who we are, in celebrating our communities, and in looking to the future.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree with that. And you also touched on the whole idea about I think it was manufacturing. This is when you were talking about sourcing locally. And I'm wondering what prospects and opportunities for growth of African fashion and manufacturing. What do you think are the prospects that we have? Because manufacturing has always been such a very heavy subject, as producing locally and not outside of our continent. So I'm wondering what's your thoughts on that?
So I'm an advocate for producing locally. For quite a few reasons. If we look at the unemployment rate on the continent, or let me bring it to home, Nigeria, it's double digits, probably either just under 30% or just above 30%, right? I believe that, we can use our manufacturing industries as an opportunity to transfer skills, right? For employability and to generate wealth. And when I say generate wealth, I mean generate income for people like that would still, that would be able to access those jobs. And then, secondly, being able to manufacture locally reduces our carbon footprint. For how long are we going to keep importing from China? For how long are we going to keep, manufacturing somewhere else and crisscrossing goods across the country? I keep referring to this year. For the first time in Nigeria this year, during the pandemic, they could not source as much as they wanted. That's when we realized the possibilities that could exist for apparel manufacturers when they had to, come to us to produce all the PPE, the masks, the surgical gowns. They had to, hazmat suits. They had to rely on on the local supply chain, and everybody was working round the clock. And you know what that did? We had to, in our, with SHF trains, we train over 800 people, but we can't employ even up to 100 people. But in the middle of a pandemic, we're able to, increase the number of people we employ from probably less than 20 to 60 sometimes, depending on the volumes we had in the factory. So why wouldn't we want to, ensure that manufacturing is onshore? If we can see the trickle-down effect, create jobs for people, reduces carbon footprint, helps, keep things within the economy, to strengthen the economy, why wouldn't we do that? As long as within our factories, we know that, the ethical standards, all of that's in place to protect the workers and everybody who works in the factories. So I'm for, I'm an advocate for that. Keep everything local, everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just like pondering on what you said. And I mean, the work that I do, it involves women and their wardrobes. And it's basically talking about the whole conversation about fashion disposal and consumption, just trying to change behavior around all of that. And now I'm taking you back to the whole idea of resale and rework and rental, that in the space that I am, people get excited about the fashion weeks and the latest thing and the newness of things. So I'm wondering then, how do you think then, if we're going to resale and rework and rental, how can we manage fashion week in such a way, or position it in such a way that it doesn't encourage this whole behavior?
So let me give you an example. We had to postpone Lagos Fashion Week. But in addition to having Lagos Fashion Week, where designers were going to be showing new collections, we were going to have swap sections as well, where people could basically, in collaboration with the global fashion exchange, where and to encourage people to do swaps. So yes, you're looking at new collections, but really you can bring your old wardrobe along as well and do swaps. You're wearing a beautiful dress. Might be tired of wearing my shirt or something, and we can do a swap. It doesn't stop us from using the whatever income we have next to buy something new to support local or to support the designers. I'm just saying that there are other business models around that, in a way that you don't have to leave all those clothes piled up at the back of your closet. Eventually you toss them somewhere because
Yeah.
there's only so much you know. So but in introducing concepts like that, like swap parties, and introducing some concepts like reworking, people, a lot of designers already do it. Customization, so it's still, some even introduced it on the runway. Like Encore discovered, she's just invented something, the Dakala cloth, and it's basically from reworked fabrics and all of that. So it doesn't really mean that both can coexist. They can
Yeah.
coexist. And you can even use, I believe strongly, I mean, because I've always seen Lagos Fashion Week as a tool for advocacy. You can also use that to champion other causes, like to encourage people to, yes, it's okay to buy new things, but you can also rent. You don't have to buy all the time. Yes, you can rework old pieces. There's some designers as well now. They send you an email. I think this is us. They send you an email. Oh, if any fabric, any of the old shirts that you bought from us or old dresses, you can send it back in for us to re-dye it. So that's interesting. So even beyond Africa, Gabriela Hurst, her collection this year was pretty much from offcuts of fabrics that she had in her atelier. And that's pretty much her saying, no, I'm not buying new fabrics this season, but yes, I'm going to present a new collection. So what do I do? I'm going to look into my, designers have it. They have stock that's left over. You have scraps and scraps of fabric. So it's in the process of reworking and re-bringing it together to create something new. So we're trying to challenge, so in hosting fashion events like Fashion Week, and encouraging the idea of new collections, it's also trying to get to reinforce to people that it's okay to make something new out of something old. So everything is I don't think we're saying if you do this, don't do that. It's the idea of making sure the alternatives that exist that people can use to encourage them to have more secular, to adopt more secular practices, either with their shopping behavior, their consuming behavior, or even in their production, in producing.
Yeah. And therefore, having said that, I feel like I'm going to put you on the spot a bit. So there's this whole idea that fast fashion is actually giving the men on the street an opportunity to feel good. The fast fashion is giving a man on the street access into this whole exclusive world that we've kind of closed in, whether it's the world of high end or whether it's the world of just this whole idea of why should they be wearing tossed clothes or second hand and all those things. So what do you say to that idea? Do you feel like fast fashion is serving that mass, or it's actually not? There's no space for fast fashion at this point in time?
Oh, there can be space for fast fashion. However, where was the fast fashion produced? Under what, and when we say fast fashion, we do know that it's almost impossible, right, to produce a t-shirt for £3 or, or the equivalent, right? So, but it's possible to mass produce without, what's the word? Without exploitation. So as long as the questions of exploitation and the issues of exploitation within the production process have been dealt with, there's nothing wrong with that. So which brings us back to the question, it's almost impossible. So in answering your question, right, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm telling you the answer is as long as it can be produced under the right conditions, sourced properly in a way that doesn't exploit, is not exploitative of the people, it's not exploitative of the environment, it's not exploitative of, any of the processes that's involved. Why not bring it on, And
Yeah.
I do know as well that clothing is 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 a funny thing. I mean, and we're African. Like in Nigeria, the second-hand goods market is huge. You know, it's a whole economy on its own, and for it to be that alive, it means that a lot of people do patronize it. You know, so it's in managing all those things, like to ensure that, okay, what exactly are we trying to achieve and what exactly are we trying to do? So, yes, to mass production of goods, but in today's world, the process must be thought about carefully. And consumers are increasingly, they want to know now. And that's why a lot of people are trying to use swap chain technology to tell you the history, to put codes in a garment so you know exactly. So there's some sort of traceability. So, in answering your question, yes, there's a place for I don't want to use the word fast because it just the idea of fast just it's it's too much to deal with. But you can to a considerable extent you can mass produce in large quantities as long as it's not exploitative of the people and what else? What else? And if I'm going to bring that home a little bit, to African fashion,
Yeah.
I think I think it's possible, right? But I think it's also the price point that's going to determine. So that whole the Primark model or the H&M model, might not necessarily be what our own, ready to wear at that price would look like. Maybe not. Maybe not your Mr. Price. Maybe not because you can imagine where they were produced in sweatshops and how much the workers were paid.
Yeah.
So we probably have to think a little bit more. The price might be a little bit more, and it might just not be as fast as as we. Yeah.
Yeah.
But African fashion is not really that fast anyway. It's
No,
really,
no.
yeah. So
More
that's,
on the slow side. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, which is good.
I just want to take a pause and just encourage everybody to send questions. If you have any questions that you would like to send to Omoyeni, we can ask her. She's here, and we're enjoying this conversation. And later on, we're going to have Christine as well, and you could also start sending questions for that. Another question that I was wondering about is no, this is not the question that I want to ask you. I think another question that I wanted to ask you is the idea of sustainability. How do we then make sustainability not become an elitist model where it's only the ones who can afford or only the ones who understand the whole knowledge around what sustainability is? How do we make it inclusive that everybody else sees it as a model or a system that can benefit all of us, the climate, the way we live? What's your thoughts on that?
I think for me, the easiest way to look at it is to think about the idea of waste, right?
Yeah.
So let's even leave fashion. Let's pause on fashion for a minute. Let's think about water. So
Yeah.
my husband always teases me like, Madam Sustainability, you're brushing your teeth. Do you really need this much water to brush your teeth? You know what I mean? So it's as little as that. Like, I don't really think it's that far-fetched. It's like, do you really need to leave the tap running while you're brushing your teeth?
Yeah.
Do you really need to leave the lights on, turn off the lights when you're walking out, sockets off, My dad as well, bless him
My dad too.
like it's like if you're not using lights, turn it off. It's just so if you start thinking about it like that with little things, in the little things, think about, okay, bottles. Okay, you drink water from bottles. What do you do with the bottle? The bottle is plastic. You trash it in the bin or put it in a bag and send it off for recycling. It's easy. Everybody can learn how to do that. It's, when you do a lot of or if you're shopping and things that come in boxes and boxes and cartons, what do you do with those boxes and cartons? You just trash them in the bin, or okay, this can still be used. I mean, think about our grandparents; they did it. So yes, we call it hoarding, or we call it hoarding, or like, do you really need to take fashion? But maybe instead of hoarding them, maybe we can, send them back into a place where it can, be sent back into the system.
Yeah.
So we have to think about fashion that way as well. Like, oh, okay, what am I buying? What kind of choices am I making? Do I want to buy this because I'm going to wear it once or twice and then push, I just toss it away because it's in fashion? Or can I, add a little bit more money? Instead of buying five, maybe I buy one. But I know that that one I'm buying is probably going to last a while, and then I'm conscious enough to look at the care label, to look at the fabric, where's it made from, where's it sourced from. So it's also about being mindful,
Mindful.
going back to that word as well, being mindful. Nobody's saying don't become an eco activist, or, no, start with little, the smallest, tiniest little things, and ask yourself before you make it. I love clothes. I love clothes. I love
Yeah, me too. Me
shopping.
too.
So, so, so I guess it's just, even in your buying choices, is in what you buy. So I don't really think it's something that's meant to be that daunting or scary, or someone is condemning you to a life of never shopping again,
Exactly.
because
Yes.
no, it's about, the choices you make. Do you want to buy something that has been made from a process that's harmful to the environment? Or you want to buy something where women were in sweatshops and were on their periods and were given pills to stop their periods? You don't want to wear that. You want to be conscious. You want to be able to, that's not the kind of thing I want. You want to support local talents and local designers. Yes, I want to. I want to. I've made it my thing that at every point in time I must be wearing something from an African brand, just to support economy, my economy, to support community. So it's just those things. So we're getting to that place where it has to be mindful consumption. And of course, yes, while we're putting a lot of responsibility on the creators, we also have to put a lot of responsibility on the consumers as well, shared responsibility for everyone. But it's not that, I don't think it's that deep. I don't, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as long as we have people like Rewoven to help us simplify the process and explain, what to do with your old clothes, you can literally take it here and sort it out. If it's made from cotton, put it here. If it's polyester, put it here. If it's, and
Yeah.
it's incremental change. And remember, change is a process; it's not an event. So no one is
Yeah.
expecting all of this to happen overnight. We're not meant to, just. I mean, there's a sense of urgency, right? But
Yeah.
I don't really think it's something that we expect to see change with, like, in a day or two.
No, I agree. It's a long process, but that still can be that's possible to change. And I love what you're saying when you say it's not about condemning people, but it's about teaching people that they need to be mindful and be aware of and of what's happening actually behind the scenes of the fashion industry. Last question: what are the prospects of Pan African fashion industry? How might this affect the future of African fashion?
Say that again.
What are the prospects of a Pan African fashion industry? How might this affect the future of African fashion industry?
I think we need one, definitely. I mean, it's the only way out. Collaboration, and not just collaboration, meaningful partnerships.
Yeah,
There are things that we have in South Africa that we don't have in Nigeria. There are
yeah,
things that Nigeria has that South Africa doesn't have. But if we begin to see, if we begin to reduce the borders that exist mentally, or shrink them, and begin to see it as one central sourcing pool, then it might, not it might, it will definitely strengthen the work that we all do. I mean, we still have a lot of roadblocks to consider. Don't forget that either way, if I want to source from South Africa, I have to ship it to Nigeria. The cost of shipping, by the time I get to, and that's even sourcing, it might be frustrating. But are there other ways that we can partner or collaborate to be able to strengthen the work that we all do? Definitely. And that's another thing as well that we've been preaching all year. I'd love to
yeah,
see it materialize. I'd love to see it come to fruition. I'd love to be able to, either see a Pan-African Fashion Council or, a Pan-African portal for education or a Pan-African portal for, for sourcing across the continent, or, even data collection, just so that everyone can have access to it, to be able to have shared information, shared ideas, shared knowledge, and shared just different things. I think a Pan-African fashion industry is the future. We don't have a choice.
We don't have a choice. I agree. I agree. I mean, thank you so much. This was just so lovely. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We wish you a beautiful festive season that's coming up, a safe one. And we just want to say thank you for joining Reuven, the Swedish Embassy, the Embassy of Sweden, TWIG, and Africa Research Institute. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to move on to the next person, which is Christine. But before you go, I really wanted to read your bio because I didn't introduce you with your bio. So I think I have to, and I want to close off with it. So I think that's just the best way to close off this session with you. So Omoyemi Akerele has been instrumental to the prolific rise of African fashion industry. A former fashion editor of True Love West Africa with multiple degrees in law, Omoyemi established the fashion business development agency Style House Files to create opportunities for African designers by spearheading initiatives that promote advancement of designers and the evolving ecosystem. Since the company's inception, Omoyemi has advocated for African creatives to be recognized and given the same opportunities as their Western counterparts. And I think with this, I think in sustainability, it's only beautiful things will come out of it. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and well done again on hosting such an amazing event. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Okay, everyone. So we're going to take a short break, and then we'll connect with Christine, and then after Christine, we'll have an exhibition. So similar to what we did with Omoyemi, we'll have a short Q&A with her just before we jump into the exhibition. And then after that, we'll do a closing with Reuven and the Swedish Institute, just to give a closing note of thanks and a closing to this beautiful session, and obviously also thanking the past couple of sessions that has passed. So we'll see you now at 12:30.